Yep. Good evening again, everybody. Welcome to Thursday night, and this is a continuation of the hearing that we held on Tuesday night. And a couple of housekeeping things I want to alert you to. Number one, please, again, double check your cell phones to make sure they're in the silent or off mode. And also, once again, to remind everybody that we won't take any testimony from the back of the room. And please be courteous to all people that are testifying this evening, and we'll get through this together. A couple of things also, we will take a 10-minute break again at 8:30 this evening, and it's my intention to get through all of the testimony this evening, so we may have to go later than we did on Tuesday night. Hopefully we don't, but we may have to. And then we'll be making some announcements if indeed it is a very late night. There's a possibility that we may not render a decision this evening due to the lateness of the evening. And if that's the case, we will be scheduling an agenda item next week, but we'll make that announcement as we get more into the hearing to see where we are toward the end of the evening. I'm not a fan of making decisions late at night, and I'm not a fan of taking testimony late at night. I don't think that serves any of us very well. So we're going to stick to that plan at this point. And also, I have to deviate just for a minute, and we have a couple of old business items that will only take us 2 minutes to get through, and I just don't want to forget about them at the end of the night. So bear with us as we just go through our agenda and to take care of a couple of old business items. The first is item 3.0 on old business 3.1, read and act on the minutes of April 10th, 2018 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Monica. Approve those minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.2 is the final disposition of the following case considered by the Board of Adjustment at the April 10th, 2018 meeting, Edward Ciccone. Is there a motion to dispose of that case?
So moved.
Second. Motion by John, second by Bob to dispose. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we can go back into the hearing on the appeal. And when we left off Tuesday night, oh, yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep, indeed. If you recall that when we left off Tuesday night, that we were in the stage where we were hearing from people that were opposed to the conditional use permit. And I want to also remind you that when we get to the rebuttal stage, that people are only entitled to offer testimony on the rebuttal portion if they offer testimony in the first round. So again, since we're at the stage of people that are opposed, if you need to preserve your right for rebuttal and you don't want to offer any testimony on that portion, just come to the table and state your name and address for the record to preserve your right. Okay, so who would like to go first this evening in opposition to the conditional use permit? Anybody? Yeah, please.
Could we possibly put the map up there that showed where the property was?
Indeed.
You want
that
would
one?
you like
There we
this
go.
one or the site plan of the?
No, that's, no, that is, I think what I'm looking at there. Yes, that's it. That's
Okay.
it.
And there's a pointer there too if you need it.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
All right.
All right, want to have a seat, please, and state your name and address for the record?
Certainly. My name is Bob Swineberg. I'm a part-time resident. You need a spelling on that last name?
Please.
It's SWYNENBURG. My home address is 14556 Mallard Lane, and that's in Homer Glen, Illinois, 60491. And my cottage here in Jacksonport is at 6287 Breezewood Lane.
That's a
No, it's a microphone, this is a pointer here.
Oh, here's the pointer. And how does this work?
Silver button on the side, up on the top there. There you go.
Right here. Okay. And let's see, my property is right here.
Okay, Bob,
Okay.
if I can just interrupt you for just a
Sure.
moment. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And first off, I had real reservations about testifying today. I have friends on both sides of this issue. And the thing is the close proximity of my home, my cottage here, to the parcel in question. I feel that if I don't say something and if it's ruled one way or the other, I may kick myself in the morning for not saying something. So here I am. First off, I became reacquainted with Door County about 20 years ago. While on vacation, my wife and I, we took Route 42 out of Sturgeon Bay, up on the bay side. It was nice, but the hustle and the bustle just wasn't for us. We took 57 on the way back, and as we were passing through the quiet village of Jacksonport, I turned to my wife and said, when I retire, I would love to have a summer place here on the quiet side. As luck would have it, about 10 years later, we found the perfect wooded lot in Jacksonport. It backed up to a horse farm, Mr. Keno's, and everything up on the plateau, because we're down low, there's a plateau up there, everything on the plateau was zoned agricultural. The horses behaved themselves. They always observed quiet hours, and not once have they cut through our property on their way to Mike's Court Pub. Never in my wildest dreams, nor nightmares, did I think that the property just to the south of us and within shouting distance would be rezoned for commercial use as an RV park. When one buys property in Door County, you quickly learn that you are not only the steward of your property, but of the entire county as well. My friends at Whitefish Dunes State Park taught me about the Niagara Escarpment and on which my property lies, and how it can be a fragile ecosystem. That is why our septics are required to be pumped out at least once every 3 years. I was given a pamphlet by the county that told me that because of the various fractures in the escarpment, that any liquid poured or accidentally spilled on the ground does not gradually percolate through the soil, but can quickly flow into the aquifers below and into the drinking water, our drinking water. Can we be assured that this RV park on the hill will have no leaking oil from its RVs or accidentally spilled gasoline? Will the huge proposed septic system ever leach into my aquifer? My drinking water is pure. I want to keep it that way. My 8th grade science teacher was a Korean War vet. He told us a story about when in Korea that the tomatoes at the bottom of this hill were huge. He asked the farmer in Korea why this was so. The farmer answered, because my outhouse is at the top of the hill. Everything has a tendency to flow downhill. Here in Jacksonport, everything flows toward the lake. This includes excessive water runoff. Many times, after arriving at Jacksonport's lakeside beach, the county has posted a swimming advisory warning due to excessive water runoff. This is a problem here in Jacksonport. Will the RV park at the top of the hill make matters worse? While on the subject of the environment, what will the effect be on our power grid if on a hot, hot summer day over 100 RVs have their air conditioners on? Also, what would be the effect of the constant humming of the ACs on the listening environment? I don't just live on a wooded lot. I live in a forest. Will the campground adhere to the daily fire safety standards posted by the county? One errant ember, and I could lose everything. In closing, a few years back, there was a proposal to build a marina at Shower Park near Clark Lake. The Clark Lake Homeowners Association opposes plans, saying that it would dramatically affect their quality of life and that it would have an adverse effect on the environment. I applaud the Clark Lake Association for taking that stand. The same way, I applaud the many residents of Jacksonport for trying to preserve their quality of life and at the same time protect the environment in opposing the RV park at the top of the hill. Are there any questions?
I have one question.
Certainly.
When the Jacksonport Town Board and the Jacksonport Plan Commission went through their series of hearings in regard to rezoning the property, were you aware?
I wish I had been, but I was not.
You weren't served any notice?
No.
By the Planning Commission, nor the town?
No.
And so obviously you did not offer any testimony either way?
No, I did not.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks for teaching me how to use the pointer tool.
All right, next, please. Hello, Gay.
Hello,
Name and address for the record, please.
my name is Gay Pustaver, 6304 Breezewood Lane, Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin.
And do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Gay Pustaver, and I have been a permanent resident of Jacksonport and property taxpayer since 1993, or for 25 years. Terrence Brandner is here as well, and he's been a permanent resident and taxpayer since 2012. We live approximately 1,200 feet downhill as the crow and noise flies from the proposed RV development. We are writing in strong opposition to the conditional use permit granted to the Lordsons for the reasons listed below, based on the Resource Planning Commission's criteria for considering a CUP. We do not feel that the RPC carefully considered the 14 CUP criteria, nor that they seem to give credence to the letters and testimony in opposition at the January 18th hearing. We are certain that you will all review the conditions in detail. Criteria number 1, whether the proposed project will adversely affect property values in the area. I cannot imagine anyone wanting to purchase our home in Jacksonport when it is that close to a development which can hold upwards of 400 people, barking dogs, and vehicles for up to 8 months legally out of the year. It may not be directly seen on the property tax bills, but none of the residents within a mile or more of the development will be able to sell their homes for a reasonable price and in a reasonable amount of time. It will take much longer and involve price reductions due to the proximity to an RV development of this size. Our property values just started going back up after the recession. There's no other RV development in the county with as many single-family dwellings within 1,500 feet. We have written testimony from a realtor that we will give you later on. Number 2, whether the proposed use is similar to other uses in the area. It depends on how you define area. Tuesday, those in support seem to feel that Bailey's Harbor is in our area. I don't agree. The proposed site is surrounded by farmland, historical village, residential neighborhood, and a carpet business. I am most concerned about the residences close to the proposed development regarding noise pollution, no matter what people list as quiet times. As Peter Hirth said on Tuesday, you can't control everybody. There are no other developments like this any closer to Jacksonport than Bailey's Harbor. Mr. Ryan asked very early Tuesday night if this was spot zoning. We feel that it was, and we may have recourse challenging this at the court level. Now that it is multi-use commercial, if the RV development is not approved, anything that's allowable under multi-use commercial could be put in that location. Number 7, whether the proposed use creates noise, odor, or dust. This proposed development is not in compliance at all with the Door County Comprehensive Plan, which is the overarching requirement of a CUP. We love living in Jacksonport and do not want to see the quiet side change this dramatically. This zoning change and development is not a gradual, planned growth development that a majority of community members want. It's a huge change to our community. I was very confused on Tuesday when Tom Wilson called this modest growth. I'm not sure how 400 plus people on 21 acres of land on a major highway in what used to be a farm field is modest. We can hear the waves from Cave Point from our deck and yard. We can hear the horses sometimes from Mr. Keno's land up the road. Those are the sounds we want to keep hearing. Of course there will be noise. Cars, horns, music, dogs barking. No matter what Lordsons say, they can't enforce quiet times. I don't want to hear that noise at all. I don't care about 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's irrelevant. The smoke from campfires will also create odor, smoke, and dust constantly. There's nothing to stop the Lordsons from staggering the 8 months that the development is legally allowed to be open, so that half the sites are occupied part of the year and overlap, and it means that some of the sites are open all year. If the development goes through, nothing will stop the cabin sites from becoming year-round rental units, especially because they're being plumbed in case they can be. People live in Beantown all year long. Number 8 and 9, provision of safe vehicular and pedestrian traffic adversely impacts neighborhood traffic flow and congestion. These are the criteria to which the RPC irresponsibly turned a complete blind eye. The only other RV development in the county whose entrance is on a major state highway, that being 42 or 57, is Harbor Village in Carlsville. The entrance is off Highway 42 on a straight piece of highway with clear traffic visibility both ways. The opposite is true of the development location in Jacksonport. It's at the top of a hill going down into town. People speed up as they go south after town, and the turn into the development is right there at the top of the hill. Coming from the south, the visibility is a bit better, but traffic will be held both ways when people are trying to maneuver 40 to 60 foot long RVs towing cars turning a 135-degree turn left from the south. There will be accidents at that junction. One local news reporter that talked to Kathy and I told us that he, quote, dreads the obituaries he will have to write for accidents at the intersection. Also, there's no way for people to get safely from the development into town without trespassing or walking, bike riding on Highway 57. Breezewood Lane, part of which is our private road, and we collaborate with our neighbors with our own money to maintain it, is not a throughway, but it will be used unsafely by vehicles and pedestrians as a shortcut to town. The road into town on Highway 57 for pedestrians, which Terry and I walk and bike all summer and fall, is on a curve and very difficult to see oncoming traffic coming north down the hill into town. The entire town of Jacksonport has between 700 to 800 residents. This could mean 400 to 500 people on that corner if the development goes through, assuming about 3 people per RV. Of course, there's going to be traffic congestion, unlike anything we've ever experienced. There's 3 or 4 foot ditches right off both sides of the road between Cave Point and Bagnell. There's no plan to level that off and build sidewalks. I too spoke with Scott Nelson and others from the DOT. When I asked how they arrived at that 4,000 car per day average through Jacksonport, he couldn't tell me. I asked him for the monthly count, the 12 months that they added up and divided and got 4,000. He could not give that to me, and neither could the Highway Department in Door County. He said the average was from a 2012 study, and they don't have the monthly data information, and they do not collect average traffic for peak tourist months. Yesterday, people gave statistics for the number of accidents at Bagnell and Highway 57. It doesn't matter how many accidents there have or haven't been so far, but with 97 RVs and vehicles owned by campers coming and going, of course, the accidents will increase. Number 12, visual harmony with existing buildings. We do not want to drive to and from home every day and observe a sea of large boxy RVs in the development. The plan for small trees and a fence will absolutely not make up for the visual of those big vehicles in that acreage. A 6-foot deer fence will be a climbing toy for children. Trees, even when they grow, are not a noise barrier, but a noise enhancer. If any of you have ever gone camping and heard one of those generators bouncing off the trees, not that they're going to have generators, but any noise bounces off the tree trunks and it gets louder. An 8-foot land berm around the entire perimeter might do it, but not likely. That's what they did on Highway 42 when they put the condos in where Thumb Fun used to be. We believe that for a development of this size and scope, the Jacksonport Town Board did not follow common sense due diligence in informing the residents of the small and close-knit community of this development ahead of time. Many of the residents who pay large amounts of property taxes are second homeowners and not in Jacksonport, coincidentally, in early May, November, and January when the hearings took place. Yes, the county only requires that people within a 300-foot radius need to be informed in writing. This is not yours to decide here, but in a rural community, 300 feet is ludicrous. There's over 100 property owners within only 1,500 feet, and all 3 town board members and most of the people who spoke in favor Tuesday live much farther away from the development. Also, so that you are aware, there are businesses that we spoke to that are not at all in favor of this development, but they do not want to come forward on the record so that they don't take sides and hurt their businesses. The Town Hall Bakery owners, Krista Olson and Don Jervis, you have testimony in opposition from them. Planned development, not just in order to quickly raise property taxes or to serve one family's dream, with consideration of the quality of life, property values, environmental considerations, and harmony on the quiet side feel of Jacksonport would be a welcome conversation. Mr. Hall said a couple of times he doesn't want Jacksonport to be that quiet. However, our community is valued by most of its residents for the laid-back, non-commercial, small-town feeling. This is all very heartbreaking for the Lauritsons and for those of us who stand to be damaged by this development. I know it's not your issue, but if the town board had informed all residents of this proactively, as Kathy and I did on our own, the community would not have been so divided. The Lauritsons would have known earlier that there was serious opposition and might have addressed the concerns with more information before they spent so much time and money. Also, taxpayer dollars would have been saved by not having to have these hearings. I know that people do not want to say no. I know your job is a tough one. But at this location, in this town, the development does not fit the requirements of the CUP, and the rezoning process is more than questionable. Finally, all of you on the Board of Adjustment have been very tolerant and inclusive in allowing all of us on both sides to speak. I've enjoyed hearing about the histories of families on both sides living in Jacksonport and how close-knit families are. But again, those things have nothing to do with your decision and the conditions on which you must make that decision. Your decision must be made by carefully reviewing all 14 conditions on the CUP application with fresh eyes, keeping in mind the compliance with the comprehensive plan. You can't take into consideration that Terry and I spend most of our days in 3 seasons on our south-facing deck and enjoy the quiet, but you can look closely at the impact on property values. This development would positively impact many fewer people than it would hurt. Thank you, and I have one more thing to read, if that's okay, from someone else.
Yes.
May I? There's copies of that. This came to Kathy and I today from Carrie Anderson, who is a former town board member in Jacksonport and a former member of the Board of Supervisors.
And she also was a member of this board for many years.
Oh, okay, I'm also a member of this board. For the record, I am very proud of Kathy and Gay and everyone who is in opposition to this Lauritsen campground. The whole process of fighting it has been an emotional nightmare to me. Some people think that I have flipped sides. I have changed my position on this. Wrong. I just do not have the strength to fight against the town board and their misguided planning committee. The whole thing doesn't pass the smell test in my mind. The fight is ugly and I can't push myself to be in the midst of it. Share this as you wish. Carrie Anderson.
Okay, before you go,
Yes,
okay,
sir.
a couple of questions.
Yep.
Number one, can you, you said you're about 1,200 feet away from the property. Can you show, well,
Terry, can you point to it because I don't know how to.
it's right there.
I know, but I'm not good at.
The silver button on the side.
On the sides,
Huh?
silver button on
Silver
the
button on the
side.
side.
All right.
There we go.
Okay.
It's right on the
Where?
edge of the,
Oh, it's a cursor, it's not a light.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was gonna be a light.
to the right of the building. I think that's.
Who's doing this? I'm not doing it.
He's
Oh! I'm like, this is confusing enough. Okay. You
There we
know.
go.
He knows where my house is.
I think it's that one there.
Okay, perfect. Right
Does
off
that look
of,
right, Terry? Yeah. Okay.
okay.
And no, I did not go to the meetings when they were first talking about this. I know
You
you're asking
anticipated.
everybody that, yes.
Yeah.
And I get that. But nothing like this has ever been proposed in the history as long as I've lived in Jacksonport. And to me, there should have been way more due diligence and letting more people know.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions
Yeah,
for Gay?
Gay, I have,
Fred?
I'm not sure how to phrase this, but I mean, so far, the people who have been up here, there have been, at least half of them have been talking about how this is going to increase the population of Jacksonport by 50%. You mentioned 400 or 500 people.
Yeah.
And yet I spent a day and a half reading all the letters, and a lot of the letters said this campground is just going to be a cheap stopping point for people who are going to head further north to the other tourist attractions. So,
What
I mean,
does that
how-
mean, cheap stopping point?
Well, I think one said they're going to stop and dump their garbage and stay there, but they're going to spend their days further north, so they're not going to give Jacksonport the kind of business that the business owners are looking for. So I guess I'm trying to reconcile which is going to happen here. How do you envision the traffic flow being with the population, with the campers?
You mean because there's gonna, are you saying that people are talking about campers coming and going and cars coming and going through Jacksonport into someplace else, even creating more traffic?
There were letters suggesting that the campers were not going to leave their business or spend their time with business owners. And in Jacksonport, they were going to head up to
sure.
Peninsula State
Well-
Park, so they weren't going to be in the community, they were going to be elsewhere.
How would anyone know what they were gonna do when they were there? I can
Well, I
can
don't
imagine
either, but
that
I'm just
some.
saying, I mean, there's, as I read all the letters of concern, there's concern either they're going to be there or they're not going to be there, and I'm not sure which it is, but seems to be a divided opinion on what's going to happen with the campers when they're in town.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the question
well-
to me is, if you think,
Well, I'm just saying-
you want my opinion on whether
Well,
you
I'm
think
just
they're gonna
saying-
come and
yeah,
go and go to other
Are
places?
they gonna, are all these people gonna spend their time congesting downtown Jacksonport, or are they gonna be elsewhere in the peninsula?
I'm sure they'll all make their own choices about where they wanna go and what they wanna do. I don't think I was talking about that. I think I was talking about more coming and going, to start camping and end camping, and then also leaving and walking and, right, bike riding and that sort of thing.
Again, it's hard to phrase the question, because I don't think there's
Yeah,
an answer that is for certain. I'm just saying even on the side of the opposition, there seem to be some concerns about where these people are gonna be when they're in the area, when they're in the
okay,
campground.
that's fair. I get it.
Okay.
I have one other
Yeah.
quick question. So who on Breezewood would have been noticed on this variance change?
300 feet.
Well, there's
300 feet was all that had been.
There's a number of properties that are 300 feet.
That's, we have some information from Paul Dreitzer, who's co-owner of ERA Star, and he and his mom's trust own those lots that I think you're talking about, directly south near where, the man who testified first.
Okay.
He lives in the little subdivision or group of lots that they developed that's even closer than our house to the RV development.
Jeff,
So-
excuse me, Gay, I
Yeah.
think Jeff can answer.
This right here, all the highlighted properties are the properties that were sent notices for the public hearings.
Yeah, so Margaret Dreitzer, it was, because their lots fell within that 300 feet.
And that's the county notice.
That's the county.
That's the county notice. Okay, fine.
Since you're talking about
Yeah,
this
okay,
property.
I'll give you this then.
I'm
We got this today from Paul Dreitzer, who, as I said, is co-owner of, here you go,
Thank you.
of those lots. He
You
said.
wanna Pass
he's-
one to Fred there, too,
Sure,
please?
sure,
And
sorry.
then I'll
There you
take the
go.
rest for the record.
He said he wasn't able to attend tonight. Attached is the listing information for just lot number 6 at Lakeside Estates, which is what we're talking about, which closed just Tuesday, the 24th. A little bit of history, we've sold other lots in that subdivision over the years for as much as $40,000 plus. In 2009, one sold for $45,000. We had lot number 6 listed at $45,800 and have continued to lower the price over time. In 2014, it was listed at $35,400. We had activity but no offers. This spring, we listed it at $21,900 and sold it for $20,000. Now during negotiations, potential about the campgrounds going in was expressed by the buyers, and they brought the price down as a result of that. They were concerned about people using the subdivision for easy access to the lake and park in Jacksonport. And then he gives you the background paperwork.
So he's saying that it actually sold for less than 20?
It sold for 20, but it went on the market for 35,400.
But I mean, after the campground possibility came up,
Yeah.
it didn't go any lower than 20. The
I
20
don't
was-
think so.
But the 35.4 was listing in 2014.
Yeah,
But the 20,000 listing price was brought on by the seller, per your testimony a minute ago.
the what?
The listing price was brought on by the seller.
The listing price was brought down by the seller, and then it was negotiated down further because of the campground, yes, by the buyers, who wanted it dropped down even more.
Thank you.
Okay?
So do we have the dates of when the listing price was lowered?
He has it. This is what he sent us, and the dates are on here.
And it closed.
It closed on the 24th.
I mean, my only concern as I read this, and if there's more dates, I missed them, but the listing price back in 2014 was before this property was
Of
rezoned.
course, yes.
And so, I
Mhm. He's
mean,
just giving you the
it-
history of it.
All right, okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Okay. Thank you, Gay. Thank you very
welcome.
much. Okay. Next, please. Yeah?
Anderson's letter also.
I don't, Gay? Is there a copy of?
It's like a plane, it's not gonna take off until everybody is seated, so it doesn't make a lot of difference.
There's only one.
Thanks a lot.
Because that was submitted, right?
Lars is.
Okay, thank you.
We'll have to wait
Hello.
for the bailiff.
Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Donna Kessler Jute.
and I'm also here on behalf of my husband, William Chute.
Okay, could you spell your last name? And you can speak into the mic, please.
Kessler Chute is Kessler, and then hyphen and Schutte.
Okay,
And Donna is the first name.
okay,
I live at 6303 Breezewood Lane, right across from Gay, and I believe close to the first gentleman that spoke as well. And I wrote something up and I
Okay.
forgot it. Okay.
okay.
You have a question?
If I could just interrupt you for a moment, and did you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, Donna. Okay.
And so I don't have my letter with me.
Take your
but
time and-
Everything that, I just want to say, I am in opposition. And everything that Gay has mentioned and the gentleman before, and I'm sure a lot of other people who have said their oppositions and the reasons are all the same reasons, so I guess there's no reason for me to repeat everything, but
We appreciate that.
yes.
Yeah, we-
So, but I
Indeed.
just wanted to come tonight and state that we are totally, strongly against this whole project.
Okay, Donna, the question I asked earlier of others that have come before to testify, were you aware that there was a zoning change on this property?
No,
Okay,
no. And we've lived now in Jacksonport for 9 years. And we picked the same reason to live in Jacksonport because it was a quiet side of the town. So we just about near flipped out when we heard about this. So it's just unbelievable to us.
Okay.
Never in our wildest dreams would have imagined anything like this, popping in our backyard. I know that I'm really concerned about trespassers. You could put up trees, you could put up signs. Nobody's gonna listen to these things, you know? And, I mean, even if we kept our garage door open and our doors, we'd probably think twice about it if something like this was in. So, we just.
okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions for Donna? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next, please. Yes, sir. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dan Menier, and that's spelled M-E-U-N-I-E-R, and my address is 6145 State Highway 57, Jacksonport. And I'm probably the one that lives closest.
Dan, let me just interrupt you. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank
I
you.
swear I do.
Thank you, Dan.
My property is the one-room schoolhouse, the red brick schoolhouse, about a quarter of a mile or so north of the proposed property. And I agree too with what,
If you want to use that, you can. Dan.
I agree with what people have been saying
On
in
the other
terms
side, that
of
silver button right there on top. Right.
my property. Would that make sense?
Yes.
That's where it is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a lovely historic property, and I just really enjoy it. I've been a musician, writing music, composing music, recording music there, and giving piano concerts for 37 years. And I rely on peace and quiet to continue my business, and I do worry that if the campground goes through, the noise and the smoke could possibly put me out of business. And I also agree that it's a very dangerous area as far as traffic. And that's really all I have to say. Everything's been said by other people. Do any of you have a question?
Dan, I'm sorry. You said how many years? 34 years, did you say?
I've been in business there 37 years.
37 years. Okay. And since you're within that 300 feet notification, were you able to attend any of the Jacksonport Plan Commission meetings and/or the Jacksonport Town Board meetings on the rezoning request?
Lars, remember that 300 feet, that's the county notification
The
area.
towns don't have any notification requirements.
I'm not sure the towns do things
Individually,
differently, so.
yeah.
I'm
So
not sure.
the town, he would have only been notified for the conditional use permit at the RPC level.
As far as I know.
Right.
yes.
Do we know what the town does, what their regulations are?
No.
No, but we may hear that in rebuttal.
Okay.
Okay?
Rezoning wouldn't have been a county decision?
Well, we have town review for both of those.
Mhm.
And they go to, that's a county board adopted policy that before it's scheduled before the resource planning committee, we send the packets off to the towns, and they have up to 28 days to review those and comment on it if they choose. But I don't know what actions they take to notify people of the town meetings.
Okay.
After the town meetings, well, then we schedule it, the RPC schedules the meetings, we send a notification, and that's the notification that goes, there's a perimeter of 300 feet.
Okay.
But the towns handle that differently, and I'm not sure how the town of Jackson does that.
But
Okay.
there would have been some notice about the property being rezoned because he has to come before the county.
From the county, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And Dan, you did get the notice for the RPC meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
And did you offer testimony at the RPC hearing?
yes.
Okay.
For the rezoning.
No.
For the RPC.
RPC conditional use permit.
Okay.
Right, I was at the January 18th meeting, and I was also opposed at that time.
But you weren't at the July meeting when the property was rezoned?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe that the town sent us a letter, and if I had received an actual letter in the mail, I would have attended.
But you would have received one from the county for that.
No, for the rezone? Oh, yeah.
For the
Yes,
county,
yes,
The
yes.
rezoning would have done
Yes, you
that.
would have.
Okay.
There was two meetings, there's towns
levels.
have meetings for the rezoning, and the county has a meet for the rezoning. Tonight, we're dealing with a conditional use permit, it's the same thing. The town would have meetings, and then the county would have meetings, so it's getting confused here.
I'm sorry I wasn't there.
That was the only question we had. And then just one more question, I should have been asking this all along, but have you ever visited a campground in operation here in Door County during the summer?
No.
Thank you.
Thank all of you too.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, who, next, please. Yes? Hello.
Hello,
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Holly Hebel, Hebel,
And address, Holly?
6170 Highway 57.
And did you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
It is.
Thank you.
I moved to Jacksonport October of last year from Glidden Drive. I was welcomed by neighbors, which made me feel very good. Came to my door, knocked on my door, and I just think it's really sad sitting here Tuesday night and today to see everyone divided by this campground. I would like to invite anyone to come stay over for a week and live upstairs in my house. I have 3 empty bedrooms and try to get out of my driveway several times a day. It's the most dangerous driveway that there is.
And where are you located on the?
I'm on the corner of Cave Point Road.
Here you go, Holly. You can press that side button there.
Where's Cave Point Road? I have no idea on this
Okay.
map.
About number 57.
Can you help?
Right
Yep.
there?
You're right
I
there.
live right there on the corner. Everyone knows it as the blue and purple doors in front of the little Methodist church.
I remember when it was for sale.
So, there is no one, okay, maybe there's 1% that follows the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. 45 at least, sometimes even faster, by dump trucks and other trucks coming down the hill. And then, that's not the only problem. With Dave's Tree Services, there's a curve there, and so the people that are going south are coming at me at that point, and the people coming down the hill are coming at me at that point, trying to get out of that driveway. Now we're gonna add, besides the regular tourist people that come in during our tourist season, you're going to be adding a whole campground full of more people using that road. And it's it's just a death trap there. And I don't know what you can do about slowing people down, but they do not slow down until they hit the church, because there's a cop that always sits by the church. Other than that, there's no one that follows the speed limit down there. I hate to repeat myself, but I like campfire smoke once in a while, but to have it every single day for 6 months is a little tough to smell and noise. And now we're talking about building sidewalks, and I have beautiful pine trees in my front yard that would all have to be cut down for sidewalks, and I have 2 acres of land on 57 that would be very costly for me to have to pay for those sidewalks for the campground. I just don't feel like it's fair to everyone that we would have to pay for all the sidewalks to be put in so that the people in the campground could come down to the businesses in town. There's no benefit for me, but it's a benefit for the businesses. And believe me, I'm a small business owner. I own 2 restaurants, so I know. Most of everything else is repeating, what everyone has said. So.
Holly, you just purchased the property in October of last year, correct? And then were you aware when you purchased the property that there was a possibility that this was in the works?
I had no idea.
And then were you able to offer testimony at the January 18th public hearing before the RPC?
No, I wasn't.
Were you aware that there was a public hearing?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Thank you very much. Okay, next please. Hello?
Hi. My name is Barb Conley Benjamin, and my brothers and sisters and I co-own a farm at 6037 Highway 57, Sturgeon Bay, which is just right outside Jacksonport.
And Barb, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Jeff, you get that?
And your last name?
It's C-O-N-L-E-Y, and then there's a hyphen, and then it's B-E-N-J-A-M-I-N.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Barb.
Okay, thanks. I've written a letter, so.
Please, yes.
And then I'd like to stop partway through. Okay, as I mentioned before, I co-own with my brothers and sisters the farm and property at 6037 Highway 57. Our property abuts Jorns Road and Highway 57 on the southeast and southwest of Highway 57. So I think you can see.
Here you go. And it's that silver button right on the side.
Okay, right, I'm sure. Right there is Jorns Road. So this is part of our property, and our farm is probably a little bit over here.
Okay.
You're on Bagnell or you're on 57?
Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, go down to 57, Jorns Road. Okay. Here's Bagnell, and this is Jorns, and so this is going to be, this is our property right here, and our farm is right there, right across from the Lissay farm. Okay. I'm also here representing my mother, Kay Kruger, who lives at 5928 North Cave Point Drive, where she owns her permanent home. I want to state for the record that my husband and/or I have attended the county rezoning meeting in May, the county conditional use permit hearing in January, the Jacksonport special meeting in March, as well as being present at these appeal hearings today, and have spoken at all of them. I also want to state for the record that my sister and co-owner of the above of the property I just described has read, at the time posted, all of the Jacksonport Town Board agendas and minutes since the introduction of the campsite we're discussing this evening. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have to the best of my ability regarding any of these meetings. I know a lot of people were not aware, and we were. Okay? Like so many others who have given testimony, our roots to this community run deep. Our great-grandfather, Thomas Reynolds, homesteaded our farm in the late 1800s, served in the Wisconsin legislature, and was responsible for the establishment of Peninsula State Park. Whitefish Dunes State Park was once owned by our cousin, John W. Reynolds, who is a former governor of Wisconsin. I share this information to let you know that our family has a history of sharing the beauty of this county while also trying to prevent overdevelopment. My brothers and sisters and I, like the Lauritsons, inherited our farm and land. We have felt that it is our responsibility to maintain the character of the property and be good stewards of the land. We have chosen to do this by farming the land responsibly, and when, in 2004, our original farmhouse collapsed in a renovation project that was meant to preserve the house, we rebuilt the house in the same location with the same overall appearance as the original house, maintaining the existing rural character. That being said, we really do understand the importance of having a viable working town and community. All of our families have benefited from the Jacksonport's local businesses. We have all, at some point in our lives, worked in the town and in the surrounding communities. We all frequent the existing local businesses and support the local festivals and parishes. These businesses, parishes, and events are all located on Highway 57 in a reduced speed zone. The proposed Lauritson campground may bring in additional revenue to the business community, but it also brings with it so many compromises to the health, safety, and character of the entire community. Given the existing speed limit on Highway 57 and the angle of the Bagnell Road intersection, it will be difficult and dangerous for large RVs to turn into the campground. It will be dangerous for pedestrians to walk into town from that location, and there is currently no approved plan. The discussions in this forum have alluded that a possible walking path could help the situation that would entail extending the path through a good part of several, extending the path through a good part of several community members' yards, requiring them to remove fencing and landscaping, the removal of several large trees, and dealing with the steep decline and ditch area along the highway along the curve. All unexpected hardship and added expense to the current residents in order to make that a safe passageway. The proposed property is currently an open field, and for over 20 years until the trees grow, as you drive north into Jacksonport, the rural character that exists now will be changed to something that, in my opinion, will look more like a Walmart parking lot. Although the septic and well issues have been addressed and meet current county codes, there are still unknown consequences once the blasting of the karst bedrock occurs. And although the drainage of the proposed park has been addressed, the increased water usage and where this additional water will eventually travel to was not yet sufficiently addressed, as was alluded to earlier with the gentleman who spoke first on Tuesday night. So in my opinion, too many accommodations will have to be made to make this campground safe, and there are still too many unknowns about the water quality and drainage issues, not to mention the length of time it will take the buffer trees to mature. This is a very nicely designed campground, and I'm sure that RV campers would enjoy staying in a facility with this design. It is just a bad location for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. A couple of questions before you go away. You said in the beginning of your testimony that you were able to attend, or someone from your family was able to attend, some of the hearings both at the Plan Commission, the Town Plan Commission, the Town Board, and the county meetings.
Yes.
And were you aware of those hearings because you saw it in the legal notice in the paper, or were you notified?
I was not notified by the town. My sister is vigilant about reading all the agendas. She lives in Scottsdale and she reads the agendas, and she noticed that it was on the agenda. So she let us know and said, somebody, you're in Illinois, come up there and go to the meeting and find out what's going on.
Okay.
Barb, did you then notify other neighbors of that?
Yes, my sister started sort of an email thing. We have a lot of family in the area. A lot of the Reynolds family own property on Cave Point Drive, and we did notify all of them. Everybody's seasonal. They're all out of town. And in the first rezoning meeting, I know that my husband and one of my cousins attended that meeting. That was like the first of our involvement.
Okay, thank you.
And were you able to offer testimony at that rezoning hearing?
Yes.
Okay. And I assume testimony was opposed to the rezoning
Testimony
request?
was opposed.
Okay.
There were, I think, my husband told me about 15 people opposed at the rezoning meeting. But that's what he told me, so.
Fair enough. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, please. Hello. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Ann Fiorello. I live at 6170 Highway 57 in Jacksonport.
And Ann, could you spell the last name, please?
Yes, F like Frank, I-O-R-E-L-L-O.
Okay. And do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I live in that lovely parcel of land, and I love it. And I agree, and I'm going to make it quick. Holly's my ride, so I need to go because she left. But so between these two roads is our land. There's 2 acres there. And it's true, it's hard to get out. I go to work every morning and come home every night. It's hard to get out, and I know it's not the campground's fault, but I do think it'll be probably worse if this campground is there. But what I really want to say is that I do work for another campground in this county, and so I have a unique perspective, and I'm not a representative of my employer at all here tonight. I'm just maybe giving a testimony for a public service announcement, if you will. Some of the problems that I've seen and I'm currently dealing with as a staff member are black water tank spills, things like that. It's a very real problem, and it's costly to take care of, and it takes a long time to take care of these things. And it's not just something you can wave away. You have to deal with it, and it happens because for a lot of different reasons. It's maybe sometimes not the resident's fault or the tenant or the camper's fault that it happens. It could be equipment or something, a failure of some sort, but it does happen. And it's something that a campground owner cannot control. You just can't. It's going to happen, and you have to deal with it. So you can't plan for it. You can't prepare for it. You can't say, my campers aren't going to do this. It's going to happen. The other thing that we deal with, there's been testimony that there aren't complaints from a lot of the campgrounds for noise and other kinds of things or security issues. We pay a lot of money for security staff. That's one of the reasons that our community feels as though they're safe and taken care of and don't have issues from our campground. It's because we have a team of people, and it costs a lot of money to keep our team in place and to keep things quiet and in order. Despite the fact that we have a security team, things happen. The police do get called. And we all know that we don't have a huge police force in Door County. So that's a time issue, it's a costly issue. And I just wanted to just sort of tell folks firsthand that these things happen, and a lot of things you can't control. It's a beautiful plan. I commend the family and the people working with them on this plan. It looks like a beautiful project, but there's really no way of controlling the things that might happen to our land because of folks making mistakes or things happening to the equipment. So that's pretty much it.
And are you at liberty to say which campground?
I can say it. I'm not representing them.
We understand that.
I work at Harbor Village, and we are surrounded by farmland, and that's another reason why there aren't issues. We don't have as many residents surrounding us as we would here in Jacksonport, and that's another big issue for me. There are a few homes, but they're not directly in the vicinity of where our campers are.
And how many years have you been employed at Harbor Village?
I've been there all of 5 weeks.
Okay.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
It's a long time, in this, seemingly. I am a camper also. Holly and I have camped over the years and have been seasonal residents at campgrounds.
And it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rick and Jeff, but the Harbor Village campground is currently in an unzoned portion of Door County. Is that correct?
Town of Egg Harbor.
Right. So it's an unzoned portion of Door County. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, and I should probably ask this of Holly, but so you're on Cave Point Road, and as I understand it, both of your concerns is that accessing Highway 57 is very congested. So the entrance to the campground is on Bagnall. Are you saying that it's because of the increased traffic going up 57 that's going to make your intersection more dangerous? Is that the issue?
Yeah, that's what we feel. I just feel like, just having that congestion, the amount of people that may be there, it could affect it. I don't know exactly if it will. I mean, I haven't, I'm not sure. But it just feels like the way it is now, it's pretty difficult. And I am worried.
Okay, and then as an experienced camper, I mean, I'm not. I see RVs with small cars. I mean, do people typically bring bicycles or small cars, or what's the accompanying? I mean, I can't see people taking a big RV and going into town necessarily. How do they get to town, and what percentage do you estimate that people have vehicles, secondary vehicles?
Okay, everyone has a vehicle in our park, and they all have golf carts too. Not all of them, but that's how they get around, and they're not going on Highway 42 in that. So they're using their vehicles, and that's just how it is.
Okay, I'm talking about people that would be camping and then using a small car to go on Highway 57 to cause the congestion.
That's not happening.
Okay.
I had a couple questions. You mentioned the Blackwater spills. What size of spills have you witnessed, and how frequent are they?
I haven't witnessed. I'm working with our company right now, dealing with something that happened before my tenure here. So I'm just giving testimony that it's a real problem, and we are dealing with it, and we are, working with the DNR. We're working with lawyers and things like that, because nobody wants to take responsibility for it.
How big a spill was it?
I really don't know.
And you don't have any feel for frequency of spills at Harbor Village?
No, not yet.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Ann, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Next, please. Hello, Jim.
Hi.
State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jim Perry. I live at 936 Quincy Street in Sturgeon Bay.
And did you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I will.
And for the record, Mr. Perry has done a considerable amount of work for me over the years, but he has sold his business, and
that's correct.
I have gone to a different carpet installer. All right.
Fine with me. In 1977, I moved to 6124 Highway 57, which, if you follow Bagnell Road straight across, all right.
You're on the highway.
The whole thing. We just follow Bagnell. You can see it. Bagnell Road. Just if you go straight across the highway, that's it. Yeah. That's where the carpet store is. So I moved there in April in '77, and I left in September of 2017. So that's just over 40 years. And I just want to say a couple of things about the traffic and the intensity and what that's like, because I saw an awful lot of it. So as time went on, in probably the mid-90s, it got a little more, I mean, everybody was very busy, and the traffic increased. The speed people came down the highway and into Jacksonport. I mean, they're still going 55 practically by the time they got to Cave Point Drive. And that's has slowed down, and the police have made a means with a sign, thing like that. They would park in my driveway many times over the years. But the turn to Bagnell Road is as dangerous as it is with the angle. But if that can be solved, just geographically by squaring off the road. The thing that I ran into was when I turned, I would go on measurements. Sometimes I'd leave the place 2 or 3 times a day. And so if I was heading south, it was seemingly a little easier. I could look down. If there was cars coming, I wouldn't go. Even if there was one, you would be waiting. But if I was going north and no one was coming from south to north, I could then go into Jacksonport. But the cars travel like this big caterpillar. So when you get past Dave's Tree Service, that curve, that's where the acceleration starts. There's nobody sitting there with a radar gun. So that's where that starts. By the time you get to Dan Minier's piano studio, there's a passing zone. That passing is allowed there. So that traffic's going 55. And it was stated at the Jacksonport meeting that they got to 55 by Bagnell Road, but it's way before that. So the thing is, if you have 2, 3, or 4 cars in a row, and this has happened to me at least a half a dozen times, and they're coming up, so I turn out, and you get just about 40, 50 feet down the road, and the second or third car then wants to pass, because that's a racetrack. And I don't know if anybody realizes that, but I see it. Motorcycles are ripping right up there. So I have had to pull off the side of the road enough times so that when I was going north, if there was one car, I would go. But if there was a line, you'd have to wait. And the other way, coming back, and I also should mention that I was at a partnership with Tony Christensen for 7 years, and we had Bright Eye Farm. And that was a little further south, just to the north or south of the Historical Society and across from Dan's. And there were so many near accidents. It was such a big problem. And we actually went to the DOT, and we wanted it to be 35 a little further up, but they wouldn't even think of that. And then when I paved the parking lot in 2000 something, I asked them again, could we do that? And they don't want to hear it. But it's so fast there that it's going to be pretty tricky with that amount of people in the camping space. So, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, or I'm not saying how people are going to drive. It's just that's the data, and that's somebody who's lived there for 40 years, and that was my business. I drove all around the northern part of the county. So much. I know it really well. Also go to Cave Point and Whitefish Bay Dunes and Shower Park a lot because I take pictures. And that Cave Point, that corner, is people will stop and take pictures of flowers across the road. People get out and go across and pick them. They pull over, but they don't pull over. They just park in the middle of the road. If people see a deer, they stop. Now, I mention that because you're going to now have increased traffic on the road. And I have seen a big pickup in the amount of vehicles, the size, and the speed. The Cave Point's 35. If you go 35 down Cave Point Drive, there's some curves that's too fast for 30, for the curves. And I have been passed from Jordan's Road to the Highway 57. People pass. That's a straightaway. That's the biggest straightaway in the whole road. It's pretty windy otherwise. So these are things I didn't hear mentioned. But this is the overall safety. We're not just talking about a campground and a little section of highway here. You're talking about the area. So you're going to have to teach people to walk on a country road facing the traffic, because that doesn't happen all the time. There'll be bikes, scooters, walking, all of that. There's a lot of people that walk now on Cave Point when there was just a few. And if you wave to them, but they didn't wave, they're from out of town. So the other thing I did was I looked up populations, and where is that? In the Jacksonport, we know we got about 700 people, and there are 297 homes. And in this is in a 99 census and stuff like that. And there were 297 homes, 503 seasonal, 0 campgrounds, and 105 commercial lodging units. So that would be the hotels and rooms that people stay in. In July, there's, and it's a bell curve, and it's peaks in the middle season. 1,768 visitors. Okay, so then you add to that to the 700, and you get 2,300. So, 2,400, actually almost 25. And that's in 99. So I couldn't find real recent ones. I found some from 2016, but it was the population. So, I mean, that's all I get to say in a way that traffic coming up the hill and Cave Point intersection is a lot more dangerous than the Bagnell Road one, in my opinion. But I don't know what it'll be like with units pulling out. So, and I'm not going to make a projection on that. But living there and getting out in the summertime, you know what the summertime is like here. And people are going 45 or 85. And still, when people are coming into Jacksonport, and even though the blinking speed sign is there, they're still going 55 miles an hour past Bagnell Road. That is not a slow thing. It would be nice if that 35 went all the way to that little knoll, south, north of Jorans Road, and there was a no passing zone. People can still pass anywhere from after they get past Meunier's studio. They can just pass, and it's not safe.
Jim, were you able to offer testimony at either the Plan Commission level or the Town Board or the RPC level
At the
in
town
this
board
matter?
meeting.
At the Town Board. And were you involved, the testimony that you offered, was that during the rezoning phase for this property?
No, that was the for and against.
For this project.
Mhm.
When the rezoning took place, were you involved with that at all?
No.
Okay. And if I heard correctly, when the rezoning took place, they did not choose to rezone your property mixed commercial. They left it small estate. Is that correct?
As far as I know, yes. I know Steve Turner, the man that purchased the property, was looking into getting it commercial too.
Okay.
So, but I don't know if he's made a move in that direction or not.
Request, application.
Okay.
I have a quick one.
Bob.
Jim, several people have talked about the population of Jacksonport, and that's an unincorporated settlement there. When you talk about the population of Jacksonport, what boundaries do you consider for that?
Well, what they do is they take the town of Jacksonport and surrounding areas. So West Jacksonport is included, and I forgot which was. I don't have an opinion about it. I just went according to what they did. So it was a surrounding area, like Egg Harbor is the town of Egg Harbor and the village. So they have so many people there, but they have a lot more people in the surrounding area.
So the figure that you have of 700 is for the total town of Jacksonport?
700 is the town of Jacksonport, right. And so that's not just the town, that includes the West Jacksonport and
Right, the
some
township.
surrounding areas.
Yeah,
the
and-
township.
Township, yeah, and so would the seasonal visitor number too.
If you had to guess, how many do you think would be in the core area that has been discussed for commercial development?
How many people?
Yeah, would you say it was half of the 700 or?
A couple, I don't know, a couple hundred anyway.
Just
You know,
curious.
there's a good number of people, but there's a lot of people who live rurally too. So, Cave Point's a lot more populated now, and I've lost track of how many full-time residents there are. Because people are retiring and moving to a place they used to have as seasonal.
Yeah, the township of Jacksonport stops before Cape Point, I think, doesn't it, before the county park?
Yes, yeah, it stops before Whitefish Bay Dunes State Park starts. So it's, I know where the sign is,
Yeah, that's
but,
okay.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
It's before that, then it's the vestibule, I suppose.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Perry?
Jeff, please.
Jeff?
Just guess one thing that, I don't know if I misunderstood your question, Lars, but the rezoning request was only for this one parcel.
No, right, I understood that.
Okay.
But I think Mr. Paul said, Randy offered some testimony and said there were other areas that were requesting, and that was the only area that they chose to bring forward, if I've heard that testimony correctly.
The town has not submitted any application for a rezoning.
Correct.
It was just the Lordsons requesting for this one parcel.
Yeah, I think Mr. Halstead had talked about wanting to have some rezoning, a larger area rezoned, and there was only, I think the Lordsons were the only ones that were interested in doing the rezoning at that time.
Okay, understood. Okay, thank you, Jeff, thank you. All right, Jeff, thank you very much. Okay. Okay, next, please. Hello.
Hello. My name is Bob Pfeiffer, 6040 Ehlers Road, Sturgeon Bay.
And Bob, could you spell your last name, please?
P-F-E-I-F-F-E-R.
Okay. And you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes. I have a couple observations to make. Could you put the topographical overlay on the map, please?
10 foot or 2 foot?
I'll just do 2 foot. I just want to see where they, okay, so our high spot is right here, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then we have basically open fields here. Okay, now can you go to the map of the park itself? The schematic of the footprint of the park. Okay. Yesterday, Tuesday, when I was here, I heard from the designers and whatnot, and I'm impressed by all the accommodations that were made and all that's been gone into making this and trying to help people's misgivings and whatnot. My first time here was just talking about the security along that border. The fence is taken care of. I'm trained to look at things a little differently and see, well, what's there that we're not talking about and what possibilities could or couldn't happen. This may be nothing. It may be something that's of concern. Our prevailing winds generally come from the west, right? But where do we get our storms from? They come from generally the southwest, not always, but the southwest. Well, RVs are a little bit like land yachts, and we all know we don't want our boats broadside in a gale storm or in the winds when we're out in the water. Here, if we have strong winds coming in our storms, we've subjected a fair number of trailers to broadside winds on a little bit of a hump. This may or may not be a concern, but again, I'm taught to look at all possibilities and rule them out, if nothing else. Let's make sure there's no...
Bob, may I interrupt you? What is your area of expertise that you...
I'm what's called a building scientist.
Okay, thank you.
This role, and if you read RV parks and, survival in RV parks are the best thing to do. If there's going to be a big wind event, you want to try to get your nose into it or your back into it so that you have the smallest profile in order to get that. Now, this isn't cut in stone, of course, the way that they're laid, but I don't have enough experience to know, is that an issue or is it not an issue? A lot of the RV parks that I do see are in rather quiet places, treed and whatnot, not necessarily up on a little bit of a rise. So that's my concern to the designers and to the owners. You don't want to have these trailers buffeted by winds over the course of a night. We all know what Door County nights can be like when it's really windy. That could be a concern, and worst case events, toppled over in bad windstorms. So that's the big observation I see there, and just something that I feel the need to point out that either can be addressed or, maybe it's something that can't be resolved. That's just the issue I have. It takes deep pockets to make a lot of these changes that's happened, and I'm glad that owners and whatnot are willing to do that, but at some point, more and more accommodations mean you have to draw some revenue from this. And all I'm going to say is, where does the next revenue stream come from? The general way that development works, it's not a one-off project. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before you leave, do you live in a close proximity to this project? Or?
No, I'm on Ehlers Road, about 3 miles
okay.
west.
Great, okay.
So I won't be directly affected.
Okay, yeah.
That still doesn't mean I don't have concerns.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Can you put the 10-foot on them just for reference? Thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Carol Ann Osinski, Osinski, and I'm speaking for myself and my husband Raymond, and we live at 4130 Bagnell Road.
And do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Carol Ann.
I just want to make a statement of concern. I am in opposition. I feel a concern certainly for the people who are wanting to do this development, and I also have a concern for the opposition, you know, the fact that we're just having neighbors against neighbors, and that's difficult. So I just want to say that I can understand both sides. I have the same concerns that everybody else has said thus far, but I just wanted to make an additional statement of concern regarding the black water in the tanks. And I did just a little bit of research myself, and I don't know what was said at the first meeting because I was not here on Tuesday. But, and I am a camper myself. We had a pop-up camper, but we did not use or have the black water tanks. But we owned a boat, a sailboat, and did have a tank in there. And so we understand the importance of having chemicals in our tanks to cut down on the odor from the black water. And what I found was that these chemicals that reduce the smells coming from the holding tanks can influence the delicate bacteriologic balance in the septic tank on the campground. It is important to choose the chemical with the least influencing effects. Chemicals such as formaldehyde, paraformaldehyde, and quaternary ammonium are often used to take care of this problem. Although most of these ingredients are biodegradable if they're diluted properly, they have been proven to be a nuisance, especially when an RV tank is emptied when it's only half full. The dosage of the deodorizing agents that is shown on the label is for a full tank. When the tank containing less is emptied, the concentration of the chemicals is higher than if it were full. This makes it more difficult for the septic tank bacteria to cope. The result from these chemicals in the septic tanks can be threefold. Number one, the degradation or the breakdown of the solids in the black water process in the septic tank can be slowed down to the point that the sludge contents will increase and a larger risk exists of overflow of solids into the drain field. If the concentration of the product chemicals is too high, it can reduce the drain field's ability to degrade the waste. And number three, the toxic chemicals might migrate from the drain field into the groundwater. And I'm very concerned about this because I just believe that we have to protect our groundwater. It is recommended that only full tanks should be emptied into septic tanks. If all of these campers are being very good about doing this and waiting until their tanks are full before they empty it, there'd not be a problem. But how do we guarantee that? And how can that be controlled? I don't see how the campground owners can say before each camper leaves, is your tank full? Or before they dump it, is your tank full? And you know, I suspect that most of them aren't, and they're going to want to dump it before they leave the campground. So that's one of my concerns that I have.
Okay, Carol Ann, there was some testimony Tuesday evening in regard to some of the testimony that you just gave as well, and I found it very informative, as I found your testimony to be extremely informative. One of the questions I left in my mind on Tuesday evening, and I don't recall if the gentleman, when he talked about chemicals that are used in this industry, I got the impression that there's little or no regulations in the United States or from state to state in regard to what type of chemicals are used, where in other countries it seems to be somewhat more regulated. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, England.
That may be true. I don't have specifics on that, so I can't tell you exactly.
Sure.
I read this a while back and I didn't copy that specific information down.
Sure. And then another question, you indicated that you too have been a camper in your lifetime.
Yes.
And have you traveled to other campgrounds in Wisconsin?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay. One of the things being in business, I don't know if this is a germane question, but I'm going to ask it because I know there's been a big movement in the last 10+ years for businesses to get travel green certification in the state of Wisconsin. Are you aware of any campgrounds in the state of Wisconsin that have RV campgrounds that have a travel green certification?
I am not. It's been a while since we've camped, and it's mostly in the Crystal Lake area.
Illinois?
No.
Crystal Lake, Wisconsin. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Lars, if I may interject, I went online too to look at chemicals, and the EPA has a guideline sheet as to what you should use and how much to use, pretty much what Carol Ann has just said, but what I could ascertain is that it is guidelines, and the campground management is to try to educate the campers as well as they do their own education. So the laws are not enforceable, I guess, but there are guidelines out there in educational form.
Okay, thanks, Monica. Okay,
And
sure.
my concern is you can educate campers, but will they do it? And how do you enforce that as an owner? That would be my biggest concern.
Indeed.
Good question.
Yeah, and I think there are mitigations to their system because they don't want problems, the corrosive problems that would come from these chemicals. So management's going to want to monitor that. So while it is a concern, I think that good management would handle that by doing what they need to do so they don't have those costly problems to deal with in their systems.
Certainly, you would hope so, right?
And perhaps another way to handle it too is there seems to be a proposed retail store on the site, and what type of chemicals are available for resale would perhaps be biodegradable type of chemicals, you know, if the management facility is able to offer that type of service.
Sure.
Okay. All right, Caroline, thank you very much. Any other questions before you go? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Caroline. Next, please. Name and address, please.
Kathy Novice. I live at 3435 North Junction Road, Jacksonport.
And Kathy, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So I own my home and a business in Jacksonport. I'm north on County A bit. I have Junction Center Yoga. So I do have a business in Jacksonport. I don't have an opposition to RV parks. I feel that this is the wrong location and the wrong siting for an RV park. I think that RV parks should be off of the main highway and in the woods, where all the neighbors don't have to see them. They should be in areas that there's not this kind of population density. And they're in the woods where if you drive by Frontier Wilderness or Bailey's Woods, you can't see that there's a campground there. This proposal has a perimeter of 2-foot-tall cedar trees around the perimeter and no internal trees proposed whatsoever, other than perhaps some landscaping around the check-in building, which is not on the plans. So I just feel like, coming from the south, this is going to look like a big parking lot full of RVs. Now, I know the Lordsons and Mr. Hirth have said you can't see it from the highway, but if you could bring up, Jeff, that first. The first photos that Matt gave you, not those, the other ones. Those. Okay, so this is approaching from the south. Just after you come over that little rise, and you can see Verlin Keno's horse barn in the back. So all of that area in front of the horse barn is the RV park. I mean, that's exactly what, coming from the south to the west of that little building, that entire field will be RVs with no trees. And then as you go further north, that's, I don't know how you got there, but they're not in order. Yeah, there. So, well, this is actually on Bagnell Road. I'll just go through all of them. They're not in order, apparently. But this is on Bagnell Road. So if you were going east on Bagnell Road, the property's on the left-hand side here. So from this perspective, again, you're going to see a ton of RVs. These units are large. So just keep going, Jeff.
And the property starts just beyond that.
The property
telephone
starts,
pole, beyond
go to that
pole.
one you just went to. Okay, so from here, this is going.
Go ahead and use this,
Okay.
Kathy, as well, so
Okay.
if you need to.
Okay, so this is going east on Bagnell Road. And this little tree line right here, that's the property line. It goes all the way to the Highway 57, which is over here. So this entire field, this is the high point, you know, where the building will be. And then this entire field all the way back here, from these trees back here, this little tiny tree line is full of RVs. The driveway is here. So you can just go to the next one, Jeff, thank you. This is further west on Bagnell Road. This is the Bernshine property with his horses. This is, there again, Verlin Keno's barn is back there for perspective. And this is the west border of the property. That the Lordson's campground would be. So all of this land in here would be full of RVs. And now we're back on the highway, and unfortunately we've taken a big leap north. This is the east border of the Lordson property. Again, there's Verlin Keno's barn for perspective. This is Highway 57. But when you reach this point on the highway, this entire field is certainly visible. So you can keep going. So now we are still on the highway. This is 57. And now I'm just north of that cable building or whatever, that concrete, that Cellcom building.
Charter.
Charter.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. This again is the west property line of the campground. So here again, I mean, I don't know how they can say you won't see it. This is it. The whole field will be full of RVs. Let's skip those for now. Can you get to those maps? So let me see where I am here. So while he's doing that, I want to talk about a couple of things, and I have some handouts here. Last night, or Tuesday night, Mr. Hirth was talking about the value,
Thank you.
proposed value of this property.
Yeah, you want to pass one down? I'll share it with you.
Hope I kept one for me.
I think I have two here.
That's okay, I have one.
We're good.
So these are other campgrounds in the county. Egg Harbor Campground, Rustic Timbers. They were talking about the number of sites per acre and how they were in the low range because Bailey's Grove, which they said is 12 sites per acre, in my calculation, 117 sites on 12 acres is 9.75. But you can see here that Rustic Timbers in Egg Harbor has 1.33 sites per acre. Wagon Trail has 1.93 sites per acre. There are a couple that are higher, but most of them are way lower. Frontier Wilderness has 6 sites per acre. Harbor Village has 1.34 sites per acre. Mr. Hirth was saying that he, and I'm not sure what his qualification is to make this suggestion, that this property would be worth $2 to $3 million, which would generate at the mill rate for Jacksonport, that would generate between $20,000 and $30,000 a year in property taxes. So if you look at the red numbers here, these are what other campgrounds in the county pay in property tax. Rustic Timbers has 160 acres with 213 sites. It's in the town of Egg Harbor. They pay $6,033. Bailey's Grove pays $8,064. Beantown, $9,000. Frontier Wilderness, it's 40 acres with 240 sites, and there's lots of buildings on the property. There's a recreation center. It's a very well-developed, fully wooded property. They pay $15,000. So I don't know where those numbers came from, but I don't think that this campground would ever pay more than $5,000 or $6,000 in property taxes. So the boon to the town, which is this big property tax income, I think is just not true. Okay, so these are the GIS maps of other campgrounds. And this is Bailey's Grove. And if you continue to look at this sheet of paper, it tells you that in Bailey's Grove, oh, I guess I don't have that one written down. Go to the next one, please. This is Beantown. I don't have that one written down either, so let's keep going. You can see, what I'm trying to point out is that around these campgrounds, there are very, very few residential lots. So if you look on this to the east of Beantown, that's a big gravel pit. There are some apartments on the to the east of Beantown. But if you look down, you can scroll through those if you'd like. That is Harbor Village. There's approximately 10 residential properties within, the purple circle is 1,500 feet. So we did 1,500 feet, which is about a quarter mile, around each of these campgrounds to see how many residential properties could possibly be affected by them. So as I said, this one, and I just went by the number of residents on the list. When you bring this up on the map, you can, and you do that purple circle, you can see who owns all the properties within that purple radius. So that's okay. That is Bailey's.
Fish Creek.
Oh, that's Fish Creek. Right, so you can see how many residences are within 1,500 feet. So you can just keep going.
And that one currently is for sale, correct?
That one currently is for sale, and that's another, and when you look at property value, that one is for sale, and it is for sale for $499,000.
Oh,
it has
It's for
$899.
Oh, $899,
Yeah.
right, and that's the one that has a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on the property. It has 80 sites. I don't have the acreage here, I don't think.
I think it's 11 point some acres, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But I might have that.
And then the other one that's for sale, and I put those numbers on here just because if we're valuing the Lauritsen RV Park at $2 to $3 million, and we have RV parks that are for sale for $499 or $899. And these are very established RV parks that are fully wooded with homes, and as I said, they have a lot of amenities on them. I think that valuation is completely off base. I don't think there's any way that the Lauritsen Park would ever be that kind of value. So if you could keep going, this is
Rustic Timbers.
Rustic Timbers. So, I mean, you can count on one hand the number of residents that are affected by this campground. So Wagon Trail, there's a few more around the Wagon Trail. I think I have that number listed here. There's 49 residential lots within 1,500 feet of the Wagon Trail. And this is the Lauritsen proposal. There's 199. So essentially there's 100 residential lots, double of any other campground in the county. Residents that are within 1,500 feet. And I think we have someone that I believe is going to testify that lives a half a mile from a campground and can hear it all the time. So if 1,500 feet is a little more than a quarter mile. So you can expect that everyone in that purple circle, and maybe double it, will actually be able to hear any sound coming from this campground. So I'll leave that at that. So the other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, last Tuesday night, Joe Drosh read a letter about the Jacksonport business association, how the business association was completely in favor of this, and that that it was going to be great for business. Well, the Jacksonport Business Association has about 30 businesses that are members. Numerous of those businesses are owned by the same people, and 6 or 7 of them are not located in Jacksonport. The people that have actually spoken out or written letters in support of the RV park is 6 businesses, or 6 people, because some of those businesses, as I said, there's might be 2 businesses owned by the same person. There's 7 businesses that have either written letters, signed petitions, or spoken out against the RV park. And the majority of people don't want to say anything because they don't want to say anything. They're businesses and they don't want to turn away, people that are their friends. One of the people in that category said, "I'm not going to say anything." He said, "I think it's the best terrible idea I've ever heard of." I'll tell you who that was. I spoke to my snowplow guy. His name is Steve, and he was plowing this winter, and I asked him if he knew about the RV park, and he said, well, a little bit. I don't know that much about it, and I talked about it a little bit, and he that night called me, and he said, I've been thinking about that all day, and he said, the way it looks to me is the town is going to get a little bit of property tax, and the people who own the property are probably going to make some money, and then 2 or 3 businesses are probably going to make money, and everybody else, and I'm going to use his term, are going to get screwed. So I think, from there,
I'm your snowplow guy, and I'm the...
Hold on.
You're not my snowplow guy. I don't know you. No, you're
Okay.
not.
All right,
I
okay.
would recognize you. So my question then, in that, who is in favor of the development? It seems like the letters and testimony in favor of the development, many of them are from family members, some of them who don't even live in Door County or own property here. Many of them are members of the town board, plan commission, etc., who seem to have pushed this through without the depth of consideration that a huge project like this deserves. I know that the town is anxious to increase business in Jacksonport, and I think most everyone opposed to this development would agree that we could use more businesses in town. I know that they, as the town representatives, are acting from the good of their hearts to improve this town which they love. But a project of this magnitude with such drastic effects on the lives of so many people deserved much deeper consideration and input from the community. If they really felt this was such a good thing, why was there not a community meeting to discuss it, to allow people to give their opinions and thoughts? Instead, it feels as though this was rushed through in the winter, hoping it would be under construction and too late by the time the citizen learned about it. Gay and I have sent out over 400 letters to property owners and have received countless phone calls and emails from distraught property owners appalled that this is happening, and that some of them, until just a few days ago, had absolutely no idea that this was happening. So who does this benefit? The truth is, there are probably about 6 businesses that it will benefit, and of those, 2 of them are totally opposed to it because they love the character of our little town and they do not want to see it destroyed. It will also benefit the developer if they are successful. The town will get a slight boost in property taxes. So for $5,000 or $6,000 in property taxes and 3 or 4 businesses increasing their sales, maybe, the entire rest of the residents and property owners should have their lives turned upside down. We have folks within 300 or 400 feet who are thinking they will have to sell their homes and move elsewhere. Who will make them whole when their property values drop? So this hearing is about a conditional use permit. The Door County zoning ordinance says, in approving conditional uses, the RPC shall determine that the proposed use at the proposed location will not be contrary to the public interest and will not be detrimental or injurious to the public health, public safety, or character of the surrounding area. It's not a permitted use. It's only a permitted use with a conditional use permit, and only if the developer can prove, in my opinion, the way I read it, only if the developer can prove without a doubt that they meet all 14 of those conditions. So the first And then, is the project consistent with the Door County Comprehensive Plan, which I think Matt, our attorney, will address that. The first of those 14 conditions is, will the project negatively affect property values? So Gay has already talked about the person who owns property, that little development just to the east and north, and they have already found, people are talking about, well, there's an RV park going in, so I'm only going to pay you $20,000. We have a realtor, there's a list in the packet, there's a realtor who has property near Shower Park, and he also, as a professional realtor, has said that yes, most assuredly. And I think it's kind of a no-brainer. I don't know if any of you would want to buy a property next to an RV park like this. I know I wouldn't, and I'm fortunate I don't live within, I live a couple miles away, so I won't actually personally suffer much from the effects of it. Is the development consistent with other developments in the area? So I think that these maps showing that, yes, there might be other RV parks in the county, but there's not a single RV park in the entire county that is this close to a residential area and affects this many residents. Provision of an approved sanitary waste disposal system. I won't talk about that. A lot of people have, and I think we know that they're putting in what's required, but does that mean that there will not be any damage to groundwater? That's an unknown, and if it happens, it will be too late. Does the project create noise, odor, or dust? I have here a letter from Chris Wendler, who lives maybe less than a quarter mile west of Frontier Wilderness on Hillside Road. She says, to whom it may concern, the experience of living near a campground is different for each individual. I live in the township of Egg Harbor, across from a campground in the town of Jacksonport. We built our home after the nearby campground had been established. I am neither for or against the proposed new campground development in Jacksonport. I would, however, like to present some realities for thought. Your senses will be more engaged, sight, smell, and sound. The realities are, you will notice added noises, traffic, children laughing while playing, adults playing, whether it be volleyball, basketball, horseshoe, or mini golf, maybe dogs barking. You will definitely hear the park. You will also hear when they have bands or other music playing. You will hear extra fireworks on the 4th of July or other holiday weekends. Besides hearing, you will see many joggers, walkers, bikers, and mopeds on the roadways. Several residents in my neighborhood approached the town of Egg Harbor to reduce the speed limit. This is on Hillside Lane. There's no traffic on this road. To reduce the speed limit from 55 to 45 because we were concerned there would be fatalities if we did not act. You may also see more litter in the roadside ditches. And I'm not saying that litter comes only from the campers. This is a common occurrence, and it's very sad to see that we have to engage in a adopt a highway cleanup effort for our wonderful earth. We need to remind our fellow humans that there's a fine for littering. I pick up trash on a regular basis prior to mowing. In my neighborhood, there have been many instances where I have had to clean up the roadway and grass ditch of broken glass and garbage so as to not get flat tires on either my car or my lawnmower. This happens when well-intentioned campers mean to drop off their bags of garbage in the garbage bins when they are leaving the campground, but then forget that they're on top of their cars or trucks. They blow off and break open, and since they don't recycle, the glass causes a huge mess. This becomes dangerous for our tires, but also for the human feet and animal paws. You will obviously constantly smell the campfires. Some don't mind, but others do. You may also have occasional trespassers who want to enjoy our natural settings. Campgrounds are seasonal mini-cities, and their neighborhoods all share in the facets of their operation, good or bad. Sincerely, Chris Wendler, Town of Egg Harbor. I also spoke with a man who owns the property to the west and south of Frontier Wilderness. His name is Bob Costa, and he said that he constantly has people dumping ashes in his woods, trespassing in his woods, cutting wood in his woods for their campfire. He said when there's a lot of people there, which is a lot of the summer that the campfire smoke billows out of the woods. I mean, he's fought that campground for years apparently, but he really hates living next to it. Noise. There will be diesel engines, barking dogs, kids playing in the pond, nightly parties with music, car alarms, fireworks. There will be noise. 10 p.m., 7 to 7 a.m., even if it is observed, is not sufficient. All of the driveways, maybe you could go, I'm sorry, Jeff, to the plan, the green one. All of the driveways and pads in this park are gravel. Now, I know they said they're going to do something to keep the dust down, but I own properties that have gravel lots and gravel parking lots, and I don't know how you could keep the dust down short of owning one of those trucks that has all the little things with water shooting out the back of it. It also makes it much worse because there's no trees here. So when the wind picks up in the middle of July and August when it's hot and dry, you can rest assured that there will be a ton of dust blowing off of this campground. We've talked about smoke a lot. The prevailing winds, according to the Wisconsin State Climatology Office, from June through October in this area are from the south-southwest, which means that all of the smoke will be blown right down into Jacksonport along Highway 57 and right into the homes of those on Highway 57 and Cave Point Drive. Light pollution. I know they've said that the lights are going to be pointing down, but still this huge of a development out in the middle of an open field, they have to have lights. There certainly is going to be light pollution. This is where I think it gets really frightening. The traffic, does the project provide for safe vehicular and pedestrian access, and does it adversely impact vehicular traffic flow and congestion? If you can find it's in the second drive that I gave you, and it's probably the second one.
Is it a video? Or is it...
That's not a video, no. Shouldn't be a video. Yeah, can you blow that up? Can you make it any bigger? Yeah. So that's a blow up of that corner. And the little orange thing is a 60-foot long, I figured a 40-foot RV towing a 20-foot car. And of course there would be space between them, so it probably is 65 or 70 feet. But that's the angle of the turn. If you were coming off of Bagnell Road and trying to turn south, the traffic coming from the north going up Highway 57, at that point is the speed limit changes to 55, ways north of here. So the oncoming traffic from the north is going 55 miles an hour, and I don't know if that turn is possible. If there's a car going north, is that vehicle going to swing into the northbound lane on Highway 57? Looks really impossible to me to make that turn. And then if you go to, I think it's the last slide in that group. Yeah, that one. So that's the same little idea of somebody trying to turn left onto Bagnell Road from Highway 57 heading north. The car coming from the north is again going 55, more likely 60 miles an hour. And if there's actually a car parked on Bagnell Road and they're trying to get around that corner, I just don't see how it can be safe. And this plan by the RPC was voted down by one person, John, I don't know how he pronounces his name. Cook. And the reason he voted it down is he said, this is going to be a very dangerous traffic and pedestrian situation. I guess it could be remedied if the town owns that little triangle on the left side of 57, between 57 and Bagnell. But who's going to pay for that? I don't feel like my tax dollars should have to pay to put in a new road to serve one business. And then the DOT has to approve it, of course, and that could take 10 years. And then pedestrians. So now in this same group, the third one from the top. This is the walking path that the town installed last year. It's a gravel walking path, and this is looking north toward Mike's Port Pub is what the blue with the blue awnings there. So just go, if you don't mind, Jeff, just go to the next one, please. So this is the same walking path, I just turned around. So now this is going south, and this walking path goes as far as the Town Hall Bakery. And if you just keep going, I think these might be in order. Okay, now we're past the Town Hall Bakery, and we are still headed south, so you can keep going. Now we've reached a point where suddenly you can see the width of the shoulder, and you can see how much space there is before the tree line, and it's not that apparent, but that's a really steep little ditch. There's culverts in there that I'm sure there's a lot of water flowing through there, so you can keep going. The ditch continues, and you can keep going, and it gets steeper and steeper, and then we're just about to approach Dan's place. And now we're just past Dan's place. So here it might be feasible to put in a walkway. And then you can keep going. Yeah, so then we get, and you can stop there. I have another handout for you here. This is a letter that I received from the town of Jacksonport, the town clerk. An email, actually, not a letter. Do you want one?
Yep.
Sorry.
Do you have any work ethic?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think it's 2 pages. That looks like it was only one.
Yeah, no, it's 2.
Oh, that's 2. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I requested any information regarding plans for extending the walkways from Town Hall Bakery south to the RV park. And her response was, there's nothing in the budget or plans that the town is funding in 2018. There's a GoFundMe discussion that will take place at tomorrow's, it was presented at the board meeting the next day. And then she comes back and says, I was reviewing the budget, I'm reconciling the first quarter, and there's $12,000 in the budget for walking paths for 2018. The discussion in the past was that it was for maintenance and possibly tar or some type of material to go over the top of the existing walking paths. Nothing has been discussed this year about extending the walking paths, nor has it been on an agenda item other than this GoFundMe proposal, which is not proposed by the town. I went to the town meeting the next night. The GoFundMe campaign was presented by the young man from Island Fever Restaurant, and they're trying to start a GoFundMe project to pave the existing walkway, not to extend them. So the next, I don't know that her answer on the next, well, so basically she told me that they spent $19,102.94, and they did the stretch from County V north to the church, and then from Mike's Port Pub down to Town Hall Bakery. So I calculated the numbers. That's 1,255 lineal feet at a cost of $15.22 per lineal foot. The Town Hall Bakery to the north edge of the Lauritsen property is approximately 1,630 feet. So if you could put that path in for the same price as you put in the walking path in town, it would cost $24,800. You saw what that looks like, and I'm not an engineer, but I'm pretty sure there's no way you could do it for the same price as that flat walkway. I would imagine it would cost, a lot more than that. And again, who's going to pay for that? And in my opinion, that to do this project without having that walkway already in is unconscionable. Somebody is going to get injured. We know that people pull in with our big RVs and they have a moped or a bike, they have a stroller, they have a dog on a leash, and where are they going to go? They're either going to trespass or they're going to walk down this little shoulder of the road. So this is looking north. The Lauritsen property is behind us to the left. That's the shoulder of the road that we're going to ask families to walk down into town to get an ice cream cone. To walk to the beach, to get anywhere in town unless they drive, this is where they have to walk. And you can, the Lauritsen property is actually, I don't know how many feet, maybe another 100 feet south of this. So the back of that sign that you see on the left-hand side is the 55-mile-an-hour mark. And as we all know, people go 55 well before they get to that sign. I just think it's incredibly unsafe. Does the project contribute to visual, so number 11 in the 14 conditions, does the project contribute to the visual harmony with existing buildings? There's a video in there, but I don't really know that we need to see it. The photos show the same thing. You can see what this is going to look like coming from the south. With that little line of 2-foot tall trees and no interior trees, I don't know how you can possibly say that this contributes to visual harmony with the existing buildings. I mean, the issue is not the buildings, the issue is the RVs. Number 13, will the proposed project protect the natural character of the area and retain natural vegetation and topography? The natural character of this area is rolling farm fields and residential homes. A field of 100 RVs with no interior vegetation, 2-foot tall cedar trees, which will not grow 3 to 4 feet per year. We will all be dead before those trees actually provide a buffer. I think we all would like to see property owners be able to do what they want to do with their property. I know I don't want somebody telling me what to do with my properties, and none of us do. But when one property owner's use of their property causes such detriment to so many properties around them, whose rights are more important? Are the rights of that one property owner more important than the rights of everybody else's life that they're going to affect? I don't think so. Many of us have chosen to live on this side of the peninsula. You've heard this a lot, but it's true. The people that have chosen to live in Jacksonport have chosen to live here because it's quiet and it's quaint. This development will drastically change that. And then I have one last photo. It's on the second one that I gave you. It's the top one.
This one?
Yeah. So, welcome to Jacksonport, to the quiet side. Not anymore. Not if we put this big RV park in. So that's my story.
Okay. And Kathy, you heard me ask the question earlier of other people that provided testimony. Were you able to attend any of the prior meetings?
Yes, I found out about this in December. Dan Monnier contacted me. I had no idea. This was well after the zoning was changed. He contacted me in December, and of course it was over the holidays, and everybody we're all busy over the holidays. The RPC hearing was scheduled for January 18th. So the beginning of January, I started calling people, and Carrie Anderson came over to my house and she said, "Do you have any idea this thing is happening?" And I said, "No, not really." And she brought the plan over, and I just went, "Oh my God." So that's the point at which I got involved, and I did come to the January RPC hearing. I have to say, I felt that the RPC paid no attention to the 14 conditions. They chatted about it, but they didn't have a worksheet with the 14 conditions. They didn't talk about whether it met the 14 conditions. I was really shocked and disappointed. I thought that a conditional use permit required meeting those 14 conditions. So and at that point, I found out that Gay was also involved, so we hooked up and we contacted personally. We put notes on people's doors. We sent out 400 and some snail mail letters to people that lived, in the area. And I'm not kidding. Last week, I had people call me up like, "What? What do you mean there's an RV park going in?" And these are people that live right on Cave Point Drive, or right on Onan Road, right at easily within that quarter-mile circle, that are going to be affected by this. I just think this should be a public discussion way before this point.
Okay. Any questions? Bob?
Kathy, you mentioned the business association for Jacksonport. There's 8 businesses that belong to that?
There's 30.
There's 30. Okay.
30 businesses, but what I said is there's 30 businesses that are listed. There are 2 and 3 businesses that belong to the same person. So of the 30 businesses, I guess maybe there's 24 or 25 business owners.
Okay. And you said there were 2 that were against this?
There are 2 that have come out publicly against it. No, I didn't say there's 2, there's 6 or 7. Well, I have a business.
Yeah.
There's 2 people that wrote letters.
businesses.
2 businesses that wrote letters. There's another business that is a very pivotal business in Jacksonport. They don't want their name mentioned. Everyone in this room knows who they are, and they are vehemently opposed to this project. Yeah, in my opinion, there are more businesses that have spoken out against it than in favor of it. Some of the businesses are not in town, you know, like Len Villano's Photography or the Door Publishing Guide, or, you know, I don't think they care. But of the businesses that are in the area, there's easily as many businesses opposed to it as there are in favor of it.
Could you be more specific?
No, I can't name names. I have talked to a couple business owners that have said, I don't want to get involved, I don't like it, but, you know, these are my customers.
We have to kind of treat that as hearsay then, you know.
Yes, well, we do have a letter from Jacksonport Town Hall Bakery in our packet. That one I recollect.
Right, and you do have a letter from me, which, you know, I have a business in
And Dan, too.
Jacksonport. And Dan, another business, right, yeah.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
Okay.
Kathy, ignoring your concerns about who would be paying for it, if they did square off the access from 57 on to Bagnall, would that relieve your concerns about the vehicular?
About the vehicular traffic, yes.
Okay.
My personal opinion is that the pedestrian traffic the vehicular traffic is going to be a huge inconvenience, and there probably will be accidents. But I just see people with a stroller and a dog on a leash trying to walk down that highway. And I walked it yesterday when I took those photos. It is incredibly dangerous. There are semis flying by at 60 miles an hour, and you got this much space. And then there's a ditch. It's incredibly dangerous. I don't think there's any way this could happen until there was a walkway.
And this is going to border on an editorial comment, but I mean, I share your concerns about the public ought to know about these issues, and I share your concern about the expense that's been involved here. But I mean, there are public notices that are out there. Is the community doing anything? If you want this to be maintained as the quiet side and try to govern what goes in, is there anything underway to make sure there's somebody that's monitoring what goes on so this can be nipped in the bud before it gets to this point? I mean, that's, to me, the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Absolutely. And you know,
there ought to be something that the community is considering to have a watchdog that keeps track of these things.
if there had been any idea that something like this might be proposed, there would have been a watchdog. Randy Halstead said yesterday, this town, nothing has happened in 50 years. So most of us don't read all, because nothing is happening. There's no reason to believe something like this is going to happen.
I'm just saying that, but this may be something going forward, but it
We're all on the
ought to be
list now.
something that the community, I mean, you have to get into whose fault is it. I'm not sure, and I sympathize with the whole scenario that this should have been addressed much earlier in the process. And I mean, I just hope the community is looking at something to make sure that somebody monitors whatever the governmental requirements are. They probably are not going to change, but you can at least find out what's going on. There ought to be some way you're spending some time to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
That is happening now. I mean, I think we have 150 people that are opposed to it on our email list, and I would bet 100 of them have now signed up for the e-news. I mean, now I get an email every 2 days from Jacksonport telling me what's going on.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Kathy? This is a good time for us to take a 10-minute break. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on Fred's comment. I know I have the most tenure on this board, and John can probably attest. He's been involved in some other projects in the past, but to answer Fred's question, in the past, years ago, Door Property Owners Association and Door County Environmental Council were two watchdog groups, if you would, that would get involved in many of these projects, but I think they too have a dwindling number and they just recently merged, if I'm not mistaken. So they have not been very active at this level, and I don't think very active at the RPC level, but 15, 20 years ago, they were very active.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my only comment.
And people would have known about it.
Sure, that's my only comment.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Okay?